Today we will be discussing problem-based learning in a physics classroom. This presentation is by me, obviously, because I'm, the one that's talking. Otherwise I'd be... Anyways, what is problem-based learning? Problem-based learning is sometimes also called project-based learning. It was developed for medical students in about the 1950s because, it's usually a good idea if the medical students try some of the procedures out before they go off into the real world and start operating on people. It's a student-centered learning technique that allows students a chance to get a deeper understanding of the knowledge of which they're working with and draws upon their prior knowledge of the subject. There are several different pros for problem-based learning. One is it draws on and builds on higher levels of knowledge. Students have to have a prior knowledge of the subject, and they can use that prior knowledge and apply it to address the problem or the project in a multitude of ways. It can be lots of fun. It offers students an endless avenue of options in addressing their problems. You have free reign. Students are encouraged to be creative and think outside the box in most of these activities, and it is an excellent fit for most science classrooms, as it provides students an opportunity to engage in scientific endeavors such as building bridges, roads. There are several cons, however, for this technique. One is that it relies on students having working knowledge of the material. If the students aren't familiar with the topic or well educated in the background information required to work on the subject, they might have trouble addressing the problem. It can also be difficult for some students, more so than others. Many students are not used to being given free reign of an assignment. They expect clear-cut directions and instructions. The last problem is it requires a lot of time. Many of these projects take multiple class periods, not just one. Here are some examples from a physics background. In our top right corner, we have a roller coaster, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. When dealing with energy, potential, and kinetic, we oftentimes have students build roller coasters. Just a great example of a problem-based learning of where students are given parameters upon which they have to build a roller coaster. It has to have multiple loops or one turn or a number of hills, etc. And then they're given materials and asked to perform the task. Another example would be the trebuchet here. This is a lot of fun. Give students the parameters of a trebuchet, give them materials to build a trebuchet, and then let them loose. They could even have a competition at the end to see who can build the best trebuchet that fires a ping pong ball the farthest. On the bottom, we have a LCAC landing craft for the Marine Corps. Obviously, you wouldn't have students build one of those, but you could have students build a hovercraft. I've seen this done before. All it requires is some wood and some trash bags and a leaf blower. It's a simple enough task, and it can be a lot of fun. Students learn about how hovercraft work, and they get to drive one around, and they will not forget that. Let me tell you that. The last example is a boat over here. I've seen this used in classrooms before as well. When working with buoyancy, uh, it allows you the opportunity to have students build their own boat, and as a final exam, you can have them take that boat to a swimming pool and paddle it across a pool. And if they make it, then they pass, and if they don't, and their boat sinks, then they fail. And obviously, if they fail, then they haven't demonstrated proper understanding and grasping of the knowledge of buoyancy. Well, that about wraps up our discussion. Let's briefly turn to technology, one which I forgot a slide for because, that happened. Uh, Many of these experiments can be used with technology. Computer-based roller coasters are my favorite to build. And there's a whole slew of other problems that can be used on computers, and also helps deal with the time crunch, because if students have a problem-based or a problem that they can work with on a computer program, then it allows them to work at home. Whereas many of these other experiments require materials that are physical and have to be used in the classroom. And there we go. That's all we have to it for the day, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a fantastic evening, because this was not weird at all. Oops.